I don't usually do blind dates. I've never been the type to trust someone else's judgment when it comes to my love life. But one day, I got a message from Lisa suggesting I go on a date with her cousin Mark. He was perfect for me. I finally caved. Just one dinner, I told myself. What's the worst that could happen? We met at a nice restaurant downtown. Mark was polite, well-dressed, and easy to talk to. He asked me questions, seemed genuinely interested in my answers, and even had a great sense of humor. Halfway through dinner, I was actually enjoying myself, surprised at how well Lisa had read my type. After dinner, he offered to walk me to my car, which was parked a few blocks away. It was a chilly night, and the streets weren't as busy as usual. We took our time, chatting as we walked. When we reached my car, I thanked him for the evening and turned to unlock the door. That's when I felt it, just a slight hesitation on his part, like he wasn't ready to say goodbye. "You know," he said, shifting his weight slightly. "There's a bar just around the corner. We could grab one more drink." I hesitated, but something about the way he asked put me on edge. He wasn't pushy, but his tone had changed ever so slightly. I forced a smile. "I've got an early morning. Rain check." He nodded, but his expression faltered just for a second. Then he smiled again, stepping back. "Of course. Drive safe." I got in, locked the doors, and watched him walk away in my rearview mirror. Something felt off. He'd been perfect all night. Too perfect. As I started the car, I quickly texted Lisa, "Thanks for setting me up with your cousin Mark. Had a great time." Then I brushed off the feeling and drove away. A few minutes later, I was on the highway heading home when my phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it at first, but glanced at the screen at a red light. A text from Lisa. "Hey, just saw your text. Wait, which cousin did you mean?" My stomach dropped. My fingers shook as I typed back, "You texted me about him yesterday. His name is Mark." Her reply came instantly. "I don't have a cousin named Mark." Cold panic spread through me. The man I'd just spent the evening with, the man who knew my name, my job, details about my life, was a stranger. I sped the rest of the way home, parked inside my garage, and locked every door and window. My hands were shaking as I replayed the evening in my head. Who was he? How did he know so much about me? I barely slept that night. The next morning, I called Lisa. We went over every detail, but nothing made sense. No one at work had mentioned setting me up with a Mark. I checked my messages, my emails. No sign that I had ever spoken to him before that night. A week later, I got another text. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. "Had a great time. Let's do it again soon." I blocked the number immediately, but I still check my locks 3 times before bed, and I never, ever agree to blind dates anymore. It started like any other online dating story. I matched with a guy named Ethan on one of those apps. His profile was normal, nice pictures, a few hobbies listed, nothing too flashy or over the top. We chatted for a couple of weeks, and he seemed sweet. Funny, even. He asked me out for dinner, and I agreed. Why not? I was tired of swiping, and he seemed like a decent guy. We met at a small Italian restaurant downtown. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table. He looked just like his photos, tall, dark hair, a warm smile. He stood up when I approached, pulled out my chair, and made a joke about how he was worried I might have stood him up. I laughed, and we started talking. At first, everything was fine. Great, even. He was charming, asked me questions about myself, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. But as the night went on, I started noticing little things, small, almost imperceptible things that made me feel off. Firstly, he never touched his food. He ordered a pasta dish, but he just pushed it around his plate while I ate. When I asked if he wasn't hungry, he shrugged and said he'd eaten a big lunch. Okay, fair enough. But then there was the way he looked at me. It wasn't creepy exactly, but it was intense, like he was studying me, memorizing every detail. I caught him staring at my hands while I was talking, and when I asked why, he just smiled and said, "You have nice hands." It was weird, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just nervous. After dinner, he suggested we take a walk. It was a nice night, and I didn't want the evening to end yet, so I agreed. We strolled through the park, and he told me about his job as a freelance photographer. He showed me some of his work on his phone landscapes, cityscapes, a few portraits. They were good, really good. But then he swiped to a photo of a woman sitting on a bench, her back to the camera. "Who's that?" I asked. He hesitated for a second before saying, "Just someone I shot a while ago." I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I can't stop thinking about it. We kept walking, and the conversation turned to more personal topics. He asked me about my family, my friends, where I lived. Normal stuff, but the way he asked felt calculated, like he was piecing together a puzzle. At one point, he mentioned that he lived nearby and invited me to see his place. I declined, saying it was getting late. He didn't push, but he seemed disappointed. When we got back to the restaurant parking lot, he walked me to my car. He leaned in like he was going to kiss me, but I turned my head at the last second, and his lips brushed my cheek instead. He pulled back, smiled, and said, "Next time." I drove home feeling uneasy, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, or the way he seemed to know just what to say to keep me talking. Or maybe it was the photo of that woman. The next morning, I woke up to a text from him. "Had a great time last night. Let's do it again soon." I didn't reply right away. I needed time to think. But then I got another text, this time with a photo attached. It was a picture of me, sitting in my car, taken from outside the driver's side window. The timestamp showed it was from last night, just after we said goodbye. My heart dropped. I hadn't seen him take that photo. I hadn't even noticed him standing there. I texted back, "Why did you take this?" His reply came almost instantly. "I like to remember things." I didn't know what to say. I felt violated, but I didn't want to overreact. Maybe he was just quirky. But then I remembered the photo of the woman on the bench, and a cold wave of dread washed over me. I decided to do a little digging. I Googled his name, but nothing came up. No social media, no portfolio, nothing. It was like he didn't exist. I went back to the dating app to look at his profile again, but it was gone. Deleted. That's when I started to panic. I called a friend and told her everything. She urged me to report him to the police, but what could I say? He hadn't technically done anything wrong. Still, I filed a report, just in case. The officer I spoke to was sympathetic, but said there wasn't much they could do without evidence of a crime. A few days passed, and I didn't hear from Ethan again. I started to relax, thinking maybe I'd overreacted. But then, on the fourth night, I woke up to the sound of my dog barking. I got up to check, but everything seemed normal. I looked out the window, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing across the street, just outside the glow of the streetlight. I couldn't make out his face, but I knew it was him. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. They searched the area but found nothing. No footprints, no evidence, nothing. I haven't seen or heard from Ethan since that night, but I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching, waiting. I've changed my routines, installed security cameras, and started carrying pepper spray, but it doesn't feel like enough. The worst part is, I don't even know his real name. If you ever feel uneasy about someone, trust your instincts. It's better to be safe than sorry. And if you have a story like this, send it to me. I'll narrate it, just like I did with mine. Stay safe out there. I'm not someone who scares easily. I've lived in big cities, traveled alone, and always trusted my gut when it came to people. I've dealt with odd encounters, brushed off weirdos on the subway, and shut down conversations that gave me a bad feeling. But one night, I learned that your instincts can fail you, and sometimes they fail you at the worst possible moment. It started like any other online date. We'd been chatting for a couple of weeks, nothing too deep, but enough to make me feel like he was normal. His name was Daniel. He was good-looking, had a stable job, and didn't seem overly pushy. No red flags, no creepy messages, nothing that set off alarm bells. When he asked if I wanted to grab dinner at a well-known steakhouse downtown, I said yes. I even texted a friend beforehand, sending his profile picture and saying, "If I disappear, this is him." It was meant as a joke, at the time anyway. I got there 5 minutes early and waited at the bar. He arrived exactly on time. He looked just like his pictures, which was already a good sign. The conversation was easy at first. He asked the usual questions, what I did for work, if I had siblings, my hobbies. Nothing weird. It was subtle, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Every time I asked him a question, he answered, but he never elaborated. If I asked about his job, he'd say something vague like, I work in finance, and then immediately turn the question back on me. Midway through the meal, I realized I'd been talking about myself for nearly 40 minutes straight. I stopped and said, Okay, your turn. Tell me something interesting about yourself. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I think you already know enough. I laughed awkwardly. That's mysterious. But seriously, what do you like to do for fun? He tilted his head. I like watching people. That sent a small chill down my spine, but I forced a smile. You mean, like, people watching? At cafes? His expression didn't change. Something like that. I should have left then, but I didn't. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was just being paranoid. After dinner, he insisted on walking me to my car. I hesitated, but he'd been polite all evening, and it felt rude to refuse. The parking garage was only a block away, and I reasoned that it was well lit, with plenty of people around. As we walked, he kept close, but not too close. He wasn't touching me, but I could feel the weight of him beside me. I started noticing little things. How his steps never faltered. How he walked just slightly behind me instead of beside me. How his breathing seemed a little too steady, like he was controlling it. I started to regret my decision. When we reached the garage, I fumbled in my bag for my keys. That's when he leaned in and said, You should be more careful about the things you post online. My blood ran cold. What? He smiled again, that same empty smile. You mentioned last week that you go jogging at the park near your apartment, the one with the big fountain. I froze. I had mentioned that, but not to him. I had posted it on my Instagram story. It had been a casual post, a picture of the fountain with the caption, Best way to clear my head. I stepped back. I don't remember telling you that. He shrugged. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. A car drove by, its headlights flashing across his face. In that split second, something changed in his expression, like he was debating something in his head. I didn't wait to find out what. I unlocked my car, got in, and slammed the door shut. As I sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, watching me, not moving, not leaving, just watching. When I got home, I locked every door and window. My heart was racing as I grabbed my phone. I checked my Instagram story again, my past posts. That's when I saw it. He had watched every single one. I blocked him, reported his profile, told my friends what had happened, but I never heard from him again. No messages, no calls, nothing. For weeks, I found myself looking over my shoulder. I avoided my usual jogging route. I changed the privacy settings on all my social media. But the worst part was the feeling that I'd never know if it was over, if he had just moved on, or if he was still watching, waiting. A month later, I got a new phone and changed my number. I convinced myself that was the end of it. But then one evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Missed you at the park today. Hope all is well. I felt sick. I hadn't posted anything about jogging in weeks. My heart pounded as I stared at the message. It could be a coincidence, I told myself, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I deleted the message and blocked the number, but sleep didn't come easy that night. Every noise outside my apartment made me jump. The creak of the old pipes, the distant hum of the city, it all felt sharper, closer. I kept checking my locks, replaying every interaction I'd ever had with him, wondering if I had done enough to make him lose interest. Days passed, then a week, then 2. No more messages, no strange encounters. I started to breathe again, started to believe it was finally over. Then, late one night, my phone buzzed. A single notification from an unknown number, a picture of me. Taken from outside my apartment window. I never opened the curtains after that, never walked alone at night. and I never, ever assumed a bad feeling was just me being paranoid, because sometimes it isn't.